What? Where did you? Why is this? Why are you seeing this?
Who knows?
Why am I seeing this?
What did I miss?
We're just talking about Chippa's cursed YouTube algorithm.
Oh God! Oh, you mean all the stuff that Chippa posted? And I'm just like, how
Yeah.
did he find this? But I guess it is his
Exactly.
algorithm.
Yeah, like, because he was like, Zach was talking about, he was like, yeah, you guys are going on. I'm just over here looking at Daggett Herb stuff.
Yeah, look
And
at
I was like,
album.
really?
We're like, that's cool, man. Ooh, the day of the herb meme. Click.
The big shell. 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 The big shell.
Zach, I don't. How much? I'm sure you know of the existence of Fantano, right?
Yes, I don't mind that.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not really a fan of his opinions or whatever. Yeah.
Wait, did Drake just literally? Did Drake?
Yes. Well, this is from 6 months ago or something, or like it's not
It was,
super
I want to say
recent.
it's 2 or 3 months. It was like 2 or 3 months ago. It wasn't that long ago.
Not like today, but
Actually,
relatively recent. And
I wanna say
Drake
I think it was
literally
Drake
21
went from where the
Savage.
hoes at to kill your hoe, fam.
Yeah.
It's just funny that Drake literally, and I didn't hear about this at the time. I just saw this today, and it's just okay. It's just so funny to me that I have all these perceptions of Drake in my head, and also what I see in Drake's music videos, and just in general in the media, what you see about Drake and hear about Drake, whatever, blah blah blah. But like, then you see this and see exactly what he says. What he says. What did he say? Like,
Your existence is a light
I'm
one.
feeling a light to decent one on your existence.
It's only
it
because you wiped a black girl.
and to me, it's just like Drake is exactly the guy I've always thought he was. Like he is nerdy,
Just a piece of shit.
yeah, he is like an angry. Not, I don't want to call him like. I saw a comment somewhere there that said Drake saw that he was sitting in his room alone at like 1 a.m. saw a Fantano review because he has nothing else to do with his life except sit and watch YouTube videos. Got mad at Fantano, like was taking a shower, and like 30 minutes later was like, "Yeah, that's what I'll say to him." He's like that nerdy kid in high school that like finally thinks of a comeback and then it's like, yeah, that's gonna get him. And it's just like that.
Yeah.
That is, and in my head, I'm always like, that's how I've always kind of imagined Drake.
This a one. I'm gonna rate his life a one.
Like, yeah, that it's like
Yeah,
that.
it's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you're a grown ass man. You're a grown ass man with a kid.
He could literally do anything. He has his own jet. He could do anything at any time, and he
He decided the greatest thing to do is to wake up at 1 a.m. and
getting mad,
Watch
getting
YouTube
mad at
videos.
YouTube videos. That's what
Drake and Elon Musk proved that money does not equal therapy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like very clear.
Or like you like, how are you bored when you have that much money? Maybe it's just like YouTube videos. That's what you're doing. You're getting mad at Fantano, like. And that's and just the way he said it is just so funny to me too. It's just his I'm feeling a light to decent one and on your existence or whatever. And I don't know if he's actually that mad, like, but that is exactly what Drake would say. You know what I mean? That's just fits. It reminds me of LeBron, and not in a way, but like they're both basically wine moms in billionaire,
Yeah,
like
they got a little
30-year-old
Karen in them.
billionaire bodies.
They both got some Karen in them.
Yes. Despite what they might see, despite their like media
They
appearance,
want to come off as all hard, and
yes,
it's just
cool,
but still like
hard,
they got a little wine mom.
respectable, but they're 90% Jewish wine mom or whatever. Like,
Don't you talk about my family.
that's what I was imagining, like Dana or something. It's just. It's just so funny.
Someone just it's just ridiculous. I don't understand.
Oh my god! Actually, speaking of, now that I just made two connections in my head. Do you know Trump reminds me of Dana, and Zach doesn't know who Dana is, but
no,
Billy. I mean, we want an old friend.
They're both classics from the tri-state area.
Yeah, an old friend that we know from school who is from Long Island. And I think she still lives there, or she,
Yeah, she's living back in Long Island.
And but honestly, like the way how she would get mad like so quickly,
super Italian, Long
super
Island,
Italian, and
like
Trump's not Italian,
Oh
but like
no.
that's besides. Like the point is like
thick
just
Long
gets
Island
mad
accent.
super quick, has a
Yeah.
super strong accent, and the way that she would like just clap back at people very angrily, very quickly. It reminds me now. It makes sense. Like it reminds me so much of Trump, and like yeah, Trump is basically like a middle-aged woman from like fashion designer from New York. Like that is the way he acts,
Yeah.
and it's so it's hilarious to me.
Yeah. Oh God, what? I'm trying to find. Came across this copy pasta a while ago of like in reference to Drake, and it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen.
Oh
Let me
God,
see if I can
a new
find
one?
it. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a new potential.
Not like
copy
Drake the
pasta.
type of guy.
Yeah, it was about the. I guess he got called for a deposition in the.
XXX.
Yeah. I think was it in Hip Hop Heads? I think.
I've still never fully understood how to say XXX. Is it XXX Tentacion? Is that just how you say it?
I don't know. I say it different every single time.
I normally will
But-
just kind of say like X.
Oh, I think I found it. All right, this is a potential copy pasta that someone just made after when like on the hip like as a comment on the Reddit
Like a
Hip Hop
new
Heads
copy
post
pasta?
about him being in the deposition. It said people love to call Drake soft or sensitive, but this freestyle further proves that Drake is the demonic goon employing thug that Tupac and Biggie were thought to be. If the ominous drill beat didn't spell it out, Drake is one of the realest threats in the rap game and can get anyone killed if he wishes. Kanye said it himself about Drake in 2018. He running around like he Pac. That's because Drake is the new modern day Pac. He's really running around with a strap on his hip, has killer goons on command, is affiliated with the mafia, and has bodyguards that look like they eat nails in a bowl of blood. He had Kanye fearing for his dear life and kid's life in 2018 when the beef was popping. Drake really is the demon of Calabasas in Hollywood. We're looking at a real-life Godfather Michael Corleone type figure, a gang-affiliated Michael Jackson, tier pop star, but on a much grander scale than MJ ever was. There's so many stories of Drake's getting rude beats clapped up or performing mob boss gestures like throat slices, clapping his hands, etc. Drake dines at mafia-style restaurants like the Nice Guy at Delilah in
Please.
Hollywood, and he has enough power to bully superstar celebrities like Tory and Kanye around and make them think twice about their actions. This Hoosier Don Corleone runs every corner and inch of Canada and claimed it as his own. For the first time in forever, we're looking at an invincible goat who really lives the stories.
Oh my god.
Mwah, chef's kiss. I love fresh pasta in the morning.
Now,
Motherfuckers out
to
here
perfection.
like this.
now, I am going to, after I finish making a YouTube channel for this show that we're on, I'm going to just take the screenshot of the Fantano DMs and
Yes.
and play David's reading of that copy pasta over top of it, where it says, "This is the hardest motherfucker around. He's the new Scarface or whatever," and just have the screenshot that says, "I'm feeling a light, decent one on your existence."
As the great Drizzy said once, "Big tune upon your head top. So watch how you speak upon my name." All right. Just remember that. He really got hitters out here.
I mean, if I were to be totally honest, I mean, I feel like if Drake wanted someone dead, he probably, because of his level of fame, he probably could kill someone, right? Like he'd probably, I mean,
Okay.
not him,
So
but like
Someone would be able
here's-
to be like, yeah, Drake, yeah, I got this for you.
yeah, exactly.
Here's my take.
If
Is
you want.
Drake hard? No. Absolutely not.
No.
No.
He's soft as
God,
tissue
no.
paper. No way.
He's
He's
like us.
Is he actually connected with people? I believe so, but he's not hard.
Not in a real
he
way.
just has people around him to be hard for him, and it gives him a false sense of security. So sometimes he can act like he's hard, but at the end of the day, he's still gonna write some 5-minute R&B song like crying about some girl that that left him. When
Yes.
and he's never going to have self-reflection and realize that he's a toxic asshole. Maybe that's why women leave him in his life.
So he's the perfect juxtaposition of Taylor Swift.
He's an
the male
emotionally
Taylor Swift.
insecure. He's an emotionally insecure man
No offense to Taylor
child
Swift.
who thinks he's like a mob boss, and he really isn't, because he may have connections like a mob boss, but he doesn't act like a mob boss.
He really
He
is
acts
that
like a
guy in
mob,
high school
so.
that thinks he's cooler than what he is, and he just became. I mean,
Yeah.
and I mean, I'll admit it. I love a lot of Drake's music. I really,
He's got some catchy bops.
I will always
No
listen.
denying it. He's not as popular as he is now without reason.
Yeah, no. It's just funny that he actually is as talented as he is, or has made as much decent music and that he has, and is still that guy, still the like petty high school nerd, and not like relaxed. And that's kind of this. If I were to get serious about this conversation and say, like, I remember in 2015 when If You're Reading This, It's Too Late came out. And that was before that came out. I was still in my Drake hater stage or phase, which like from pretty much the time, because do you remember at ODU we knew every Drake song. We would sing every Drake song lyric for lyric because we were forced to listen to them constantly.
Is there ever a time where we didn't listen to Young Money in general in college?
Oh,
I don't
that's
think
like,
there was.
I mean, that was like, if I had Spotify back then they would, like, everyone from Young Money would be like in my top 10 still because of how much we listened to them. It was like hate listening, but it's still really, and looking back, it's like really entertaining, fun music. But my point is that I disliked Drake strongly, made fun of him, and then in 2015, If You're Reading This, It's Too Late came out, and that was, for whatever reason, that was the turning point where I was kind of like, or like around that time period, maybe it was just whatever else I was listening to, I don't know, but that was a turning point for me where I went, Drake has put out a lot of good stuff, and I really like this. I feel like this is like a turning point for Drake.
I mean, if you're listening to this, it's too late. You're a Drake stan now.
Well, yeah, and I just felt like, okay, this is a turning point for Drake. This is actually pretty good. He's taking himself a little more seriously, and not in like a necessarily dumb, corny way. And he actually can rap, even if other people are writing for him. Doesn't matter. It's like he at least can sound good and make a good rap, and not just R&B and whatever else he has done. And then on top of that, he had the beef with Meek Mill. That was that year, and he actually had. I mean, Back to Back is fire. I mean,
he bodied him. I've never heard a diss track made into a catchy beat. Like that's even more.
That's the thing. It was popular.
Let's be real. Most diss tracks are some ass, and they don't really have a lot of replayability because nobody wants to hear like a 3-minute song of like someone just shitting on the existence of another human being.
It's a lot of like one-liners, and you listen to it once and you're like, damn, that was crazy. And that's about it.
I don't know. I'm not bumping Pac Hit 'Em Up every day. You know what I mean? I don't want to hear about you talking about fucking somebody else's wife. I don't want to hear you making fun of a dude for having sickle cell.
Don't want to hear me talk about fucking your bitch.
I mean, like, what was Nas's?
Pac went scorched earth. All right, it came off as like it felt like an 8chan hate crime. That's
and like, what was Nas's?
Ether.
Ether, yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I've listened to that song maybe once or twice in my entire life and been like, damn, that's crazy. And then, and never listen. It's not for listening. It's for, it just,
my thing, hot take from me. There's a combination of things. Is one, I was more of a Jay-Z person than Nas, but I didn't think Ether was that great. And then also in retrospect now, like most of Ether is just him being like, haha, you're gay. It's like,
yeah, and that's kind of
dude.
That's actually a lot of that's a lot of diss tracks where just pretty much saying other people were gay without, and it's like the thing about diss tracks too, and I'm kind of an outsider because I'm not like I'm not a hip hop. The first hip hop album I was ever into seriously was Graduation. Like that was the first hip hop album I ever bought in a CD form. And before that, I mean, I listened to a lot of rap just from radio and stuff, but never was like an aficionado or historian, whatever you want to call it. So
Yeah,
Kanye is my first,
Mhm.
actual foray into seriously listening. And so before that, I'm kind of, I'm still not efficient, I guess, on any kind of, I know about a lot of stuff, and
Mhm.
but I wasn't there at the time,
Yeah.
and whatever. Anyways, my point is that bef- the one diss track that I was really around for. I mean, I've been around for a lot, like Back to Back and stuff, but Back to Back was
Mhm.
literally a party song that just happened to be a
Yeah.
diss track. But like the one that, it's the best one I've ever heard is Pusha T on Drake, and
Mhm.
because he's just spitting, and he doesn't lie about a single thing he says,
He just
and
literally
that's what's
just yeah.
so painful about it. That's what's so fucked up about it, is he's not calling him gay. He's not, which,
Yeah.
if there's no like that's the thing about just calling someone gay for 3 minutes. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, whatever, that was a thing back then, but like if you have no evidence, okay, like, I mean, I mean, it's like there's no, that you're just calling, you're just saying insults for to say insults. But Pusha T is literally like basically just pulling out receipts.
He was like, bro, you did blackface and you're like hiding that you have a child and you're being a deadbeat dad like your dad was to you. And I was like, oh shit, bro.
I
Oh
I mean,
fuck.
it literally, I've never seen someone murdered like that before. And I think for in my mind, I can take. So remember how I said, if you're reading this, it's too late. That was sort of when I
Hmm.
was like started actually respecting Drake more.
Hmm.
If you're reading this, it's too late, and then, or you could even maybe take Back to Back and then sandwich it, that period of, if you're reading it's too late, and then the story of
Hmm.
Addie Don, and
Hmm.
that is my section of when I respected Drake, or when I, it's going down,
Right.
it's going downhill way
Yeah.
before the
Yeah.
story
Yeah.
of Addie Don.
Yeah.
But when that
Hmm.
happened, I was just like, it's over. I can't respect this guy anymore. Not, I
Right.
mean, it's over. It's over. My
Yeah.
respect. I will still listen to him for fun, but I'll never ever think of
As
him and like as
as
an
a
artist ever again, like I
as
did.
a long time as a long time Pusha T stand slash growing up on clips and knowing
I mean,
that
from Virginia
his
too.
his his yeah, and knowing his beef from with Drake and more specifically with Cash Money in general goes back
Hmm.
years. Like for me, I never, I for me, I was like there wasn't ever really a respect level for me for Drake. So
Yeah.
especially when listening to his lyrical content and him every once in a while going into the like I go hard thing, and it's just like, dude, you're you're a Canadian actor, bro. You're in Degrassi. Like,
Just
don't do
stop.
this.
Just stop.
Don't try this, okay? Like,
Yep.
just stick to the R&B bops, all right? Like, but no, like the fact that and it's funny because all of that comes from is the what happened to that boy song where it was Clips and Birdman. And
Yes.
essentially, from what I remember, happened was basically it's that song is Birdman's song featuring Clips, and Pharrell did the beat.
Hmm.
And I don't
Which makes sense.
think like yeah, and I think like something happened where like I don't think Birdman wanted to pay Pharrell for the beat or something like that. He was just
Classic.
something tried to do something shitty like that, and then
Why does that
so
always
they had
happen?
beef. Yeah, so they had beef
It
like
just
ever
doesn't make
since
any sense.
then, and yeah, so like it was that it the Drake thing bled into from like him having beef with Birdman and Lil Wayne. And then
Oh.
of course like and then there was occasional shots as well once Pusha T came out solo, and those were more based out of the the rumors about Drake ghostwriting. So then
Yeah.
as Pusha T's like an old school hip hop dude, he's just like, you don't, if you're ghostwriting, you're trash. Like, get out of here. Like, no
Yep.
one wants to hear you being considered like the goat or whatever when you
You're not
don't
even
write
writing your
all of your own
songs.
lyrics. Yeah,
Yeah.
which I mean, I think now it does not matter. That does not matter. That's
Hmm.
like that was one of the last like things of like old school original hip hop culture,
Hmm.
which was like
Which makes
the
sense.
importance of your lyrical content. Yeah, it was the importance of like especially late 80s and then 90s hip hops, from originally before being mainstream of having battle rapping and you trying to prove that you're the best MC it's competitive musical poetry.
Yeah, it
And
really is, and the fact because poetry. Well, and I don't want to get too far into what I'm just thinking of right now about how poets can take years to write like a 5 line poem because they keep
mhm,
editing it and and
yeah,
really trying to like refine it. Whereas a lot in hip hop, a song can be like that, but like with like battle rap and any kind of live performance or like a lot of stuff has to come very quickly off the top of your head, or you have to make it up really quickly. So it's
yeah,
very different from normal poetry, but
yeah.
in the same vein.
Yeah, and so I think it was from that, and I think it's like I have a unique experience of like because I have an older brother, and I normally listened or watched or kind of saw whatever my older brother saw,
Yep.
and seeing stuff in the '90s at the peak of that like
Hmm.
makes it's like even though I'm young, I have an old head's hip hop perspective. Like
Yeah, if your brother was listening to if he's a little older and was
mhm.
listening to stuff that was a little older than our time, you still absorbed it
Yeah. Like
similarly.
I mean I was listening to hip hop at like 5. I don't know if that's what I should have been doing, but I
Yeah,
mean like I
I
remember
don't think it
one of the
matters.
first album remember the first hip hop album I listened to or remember listening to is East 1999 by Bone Thugs and Harmony.
Hmm.
So like you know what I mean? Like I remember listening to DC radio hip hop radio stations like 95.5 and 93.9. Like I remember in 98 I remember one day being in the car with my family and we were listening to they did an all day like either Biggie or Tupac because it was like the 1 or 2 year anniversary of them
Of them
getting
dying.
shot. Yes. Yeah, so like for me like I just grew up heavily on Pac and Biggie and all the '90s guys and Jay Z. My brother was a huge Jay Z like guy.
I
So
remember
for
you
me,
in
like I
middle
grew up
school
on the
really
old
liking Jay Z.
school goats. Yeah, I mean, I was invested in the whole Rockefeller brand. Like, I was listening to the Diplomats. I was listening to obviously Kanye when he came up through them. Like, I was
Hmm.
listening to Cameron, Joel Santana. Like, I was listening to Jim Jones, all those guys. Like, uh, BD Siegel,
Hmm.
Freeway, like everybody on that.
Hmm.
Like, so yeah, I mean, but I think mainly though, I've always had a preference for West Coast hip hop because
Really,
I
even with
always
all
felt,
that.
yeah, yeah, because I always felt like when it came to the '90s of like who's better, East Coast or West Coast, and it kind of think it transcends into all my musical preferences as well. Is that West Coast, and more specifically, I guess because he kind of helped form the West Coast sound, Dr. Dre, the use of like funk beats as
Hmm.
opposed to like East Coast was about soul and jazz, whereas West Coast was more about funk and like funk jazz kind of like
West
samples.
Coast just
Like
always sounds like uh, driving. Like if I were to imagine myself driving in Los Angeles down a street, at like 30 miles an hour,
mm,
it's sunset.
yep.
There's sunset in the background. It's chill. That is, it just if you're talking about a classic West Coast song, it always makes
Hmm.
me think I'm driving with the windows down. It's sunset. It's summertime. Probably it's chill. Whereas, yeah, East New York specifically, East Coast is always almost angry. Not
Hmm.
always, but a lot more aggressive and dark, and feels more like nighttime to me.
And I feel like that's a good reflection of the
The two
like
sides
New York City and LA, yeah.
and
And then
just the
like yeah,
cities.
because and what they were sampling, like Dr. Dre was sampling, uh George Clinton Funkadelics, like Barclays,
Hmm.
like real like funky '70s type of stuff. Whereas like the New York guys, they were like kind of they'd be sampling like jazz or they'd be sampling Miles Davis,
They're
or like old school soul stuff.
they're
And
like what's the one Led Zeppelin song? when the levee breaks, like that
Mm-hmm.
that drum track is like a
Yeah.
New York hip hop like staple, sampled in different
Mm-hmm.
ways, but that like
Mm-hmm.
echoey drum track, and it sounds ominous. It's kind of
Yeah.
it's not a
Yeah.
happy sounding drums or whatever. So
Yeah.
that's always like a New York boom bap sound.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the boom bap was very influential. For a perfect example for me is like when I think New York though, when I think old school New York, I don't necessarily think like when like Biggie and then post Biggie wave of like the New York gangster rap. Like
mhm.
I think of when I think New York rap, I think A Tribe Called Quest. Like
You pre
that's what I
Biggie.
think of. I think pre Biggie, and then for
Yep.
but for West Coast, I always think like Death Row
Mm,
or Ice Cube. You know what I mean? Like I
yep.
think NWA,
I was gonna say
NWA to
NWA
Death Row era. Yeah. For
because
some reason, I always envision the early '90s, not the late '90s. Even though I listened to mainly the late '90s because that's when I first started listening to hip hop. But it's weird for some reason that just seems like
it's just
such a
a leftover
distinct
effect.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's such
it's
a
like
distinct time point.
it's very the when music is very when a certain time period of music is really influential, and it goes for any type of music, it has a wake, where
Hmm.
like there was a bomb that went off or something, and there's a wake that just kind of lingers. And that's how like Nirvana was for rock in the
Hmm.
early, that album came out in
Yeah, like
91, and it
like
was
grunge, like
still
everything
the
sounded like Nirvana from like '90 to like '96.
yeah, for a long time. And even in like the early 2000s or whatever, it still
Yeah.
had effects. So that's just any like you said, and it's weird because like, yeah, I mean Biggie sounds way different than Run DMC. And I think
Hmm.
about Run DMC as a sort of East Coast thing more. Like that's the sound I hear, even though that's way
Hmm.
older. But that's sort of the sound I hear for New York, and even like Beastie Boys and stuff. Like I hear
Right.
that sound for New York more than I think about Biggie, because I think by that point rap was starting to kind of coalesce by the late '90s into like one. I don't, and of course there's always different sounds from different places, but there like it just by the time Biggie came around, it was less distinct as East Coast, I guess.
Yeah. For me, like I don't even put a regional divide to hip hop until the early '90s.
Yeah,
Until the explosion of popularity for NWA,
it didn't
because
exist.
anything before that, even if you weren't from New York and you were like, because like a lot of people there's rappers from the early days that weren't from New York, not as common, but like,
That
and even if they
sounded like New
were,
York.
they just did the New York style because that's the origin of hip hop. Like it started off in New York City, and they're the ones who cultivated it, and once it expanded to pretty much all all the every corner of America in terms of like the African American community, and like then everyone started doing it. It became the de facto music of Black people. Then you saw it be like become people started making
Actually
their own regional
diversify.
styles. And I think it's cool that I think all the regional styles kind of reflect the culture, the subculture of the African American communities in that
In those
area.
areas.
Yeah, like Chicago was always, conscious rap originally from the start before
Yep.
drill took over because, it had that influence of all the social rights like leaders like Jesse Jackson that had like gone to Chicago
Yep.
and set
Like
up in that
Chicago was so
area.
big for any type of. I mean, that was like the Democratic stronghold, if you want to call. You
Hmm.
want to bring the Democrats into this, but like that was the
Yeah,
Democratic stronghold
yeah,
for
yeah,
100
no,
years.
definitely.
So
Yeah, I mean, it's not a coincidence that Obama blew up by going and starting his
from Chicago.
political career in Chicago. Like it was the go-to place.
You
Like,
said, what did you say that like, hip hop had started out as everyone kind of just copied New York early
mhm,
on. When it wasn't popular, and as soon as it kind of hit that, whatever you want to call it, that like there's an inflection point where all of a sudden it boils over, and
mhm,
And all of a sudden it just explodes into like a bunch of different forms or whatever that are all regionally reflective. And I was just thinking about this, not with hip hop, but just in music in general. I don't want to get off topic. I just wanted to say this before I forget it. But like, ever since I want to say, I don't know, probably 2000, excuse me, 2013 or something, 2015, that it really almost doesn't exist anymore with music because of Spotify and the internet. Like there isn't regional scenes of music anymore. And I mean, of course there are, but like as soon as a style blows up from a region, it immediately either like takes over the entire scene, or there's not copycats, but people that are inspired by it all over the world or the country or whatever. And it's no longer a regional scene the way it was 30 years ago, for and I'm talking about any style of music, because like, I was just thinking like there's a specific type of emo music that's called Midwest emo, and it's from Chicago and Midwest region. It has a very distinct, specific style that was early 2000s, and it was all artists from that region because they all knew each other and all were listening to each other in that area. And it kind of had a resurgence recently, but now it's like they're all the quote unquote Midwest emo artists. None of them are from Chicago now, or like most of them are not from Chicago. They're from anywhere. And not that that's really a problem, but it is kind of sad almost that there's not scenes from areas anymore.
Honestly, I didn't even think about that. Like that's a really good point, because I would agree. Any new upcoming artist, for the most part, I can't tell where they're from. I have no idea where they're from. There's a lack of regional flavor to the newer generation of hip hop artists.
To me, the last the last hip hop explosion or whatever that was and it was probably the last gasp, was Atlanta, like the last, and not like Outkast Atlanta, but the Atlanta that was like Young Thug and
so
that sort of scene, kind of.
Yeah, I would say I think it's a mixture of just how drill evolved. I think it's a combination of mid 2000s trap with T.I., Jeezy, Gucci Mane, all those guys. And then the 2010-2011 explosion of Chicago drill with Chief Keef, King Von, all those guys. So I think those are the last two regional explosions. And there hasn't been one since. Because SoundCloud, that happening, right, that happening, combining with the nexus point of SoundCloud and like the internet fully becoming a huge beacon to like spread like influence, like instead of how it was like regionally. I think those combining makes it so that like that was like the final like regional flair of specific areas. Now it's just people are just it's kind of like just like a gumbo pot now. It's just like people are just mixing whatever they like the sound of and putting it together, and then that's what they make.
I think that's interesting, or can be interesting, but it's not the same. And I think regional sounds regional sounds for any style of music was always super interesting to me, because you could just be like, oh, that sounds like this, and they kind of build on each other, and it makes I don't know, it kind of just it carves a little spot for itself. And now it's I feel like it's harder, or it's going to be harder for smaller artists to, because you could have like I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but you could have regional artists who never blow up to be super mainstream, but they're loved in Chicago or what, you know what I mean? Like you could have they're loved for 30 years in Chicago, and no one else outside of Chicago ever finds them or cares about them or whatever. But that's fine. They have a perfectly fine career in Chicago or wherever, and that is, I feel like, going to be a lot harder now that doesn't really exist as much. Maybe that's just kind of my thought. But
I think I also think that there's now a more focus on who the producer is as well.
Yeah, people realize that
Because
they have a huge influence.
yeah,
Which is
and I
good,
think
finally.
yeah. And so now for me when I try and find new music, I also look for who the producer is and who they work with.
Yep.
But there's also still examples of like, and it's maybe because they've been in the rap game for a little bit longer than like the last 5 years, but there's still people that kind of adhere to that.
Hmm.
I think a perfect example is Freddie Gibbs because Freddie Gibbs, for the most part, has producers that he works with tailor their style towards using soul samples that
Hmm.
he raps like kind of like an old school way, which I'm not surprised with considering he's from Gary, Indiana, which is the home of like the Jacksons. So like, of course, he's gonna have like a Motown kind of soul flavor to it by being from a Midwest city.
God,
You know,
Gary, Indiana. And he like
like
he like reps it. Well, not reps it, but like it's he's not like he doesn't pretend to be from
oh no,
somewhere else. So let me put it that way.
I mean, Gary, Indiana also is like a unique place. It's like it's
Weird
probably
place.
it's the most infamous. Like I think it's the most well known uh, African American community or city that's not the largest, and
Yes.
because of its unique, I guess, build because it's at the very top of Indiana, and it's like an hour away from Chicago,
Hmm.
and it originally was like basically I think there's a city next to it that's called South Chicago, but the whole premise of it was it was supposed to be like South Chicago, like it was supposed to be like
Because it's
Chicago
close
but further down
enough.
south. Yeah, exactly. And so
Metropolitan area.
like yeah, it's like what happened to Detroit happened to a smaller version of Detroit, and it just like it got worse
To
than
me, that's
or as
even
bad
worse
as
because
Detroit.
it doesn't have it doesn't have
Yeah,
a big
exactly.
support
Like
system. It's just a tiny. It's like Fredericksburg, but the
yeah,
same getting fucked by the same things.
yeah, like all the manufacturing industries like went away. It already was a majority like black city, and then you take away all the manufacturing jobs, and like literally no one has anything to work with, and it
Hmm.
just like descended into this chaos of like everyone having no money, like no tax revenue. Everything's just decrepit and like 50 years old and run down.
Isn't that
It's
weird
just
how
bad.
when all of a sudden people don't have money and all of a sudden all the public, infrastructure breaks down, weird crime rates go
Wow.
up. It's weird.
Amazing. Imagine that. Imagine doing
Hey, yo,
crime because
that's
you don't have
crazy,
money.
man.
And it's weird how all the statistics
Everything's broken
show.
around me, so I'm gonna do crime? Can't
It's weird
imagine.
how the statistics show too that like regardless of race or cultural background, it's almost exactly the
You
same
mean Corn Pop
outcome.
in the trailer park down the road does as much crime as anyone
It's
else?
weird how
I
in
don't
Orange
believe
County,
it.
Virginia, within the poor white trash trailer park communities, there's a proportionate amount of crime there as there is to any other racial minorities communities because there's no money or
What?
jobs
White people also do
or
crack cocaine?
infrastructure. Oh yes,
I
if you grew
remember.
up in Orange County, yes.
I
Yeah.
also didn't. The funny thing about that is like that reminds me of like I didn't realize how like trash where I live was. Like I didn't think of it
Yep.
because
Me
I
neither.
never
Not until
interacted with
college.
any of my. I didn't interact with any of my neighbors. You know what I mean? And then
Mm-hmm.
like it's like I figured out about like
Your
and of course
Vietnam vet
the
neighbor.
yeah, well, yeah, my Vietnam vet neighbor who used to throw rocks at my dog, like, and would randomly shoot into the air at like 3 p.m. on a Saturday, and he had like a freaking wolf dog that like lived till it was like 20. But
Dash
then
for the Ho
also,
Chi Minh Trail.
exactly. But also there was the freaking the guy who was selling drugs at his house, and then he also sold his son became a drug dealer, and then they got into a rivalry, and then they got into an argument and had a shootout in his yard, and he killed his own son. And it's like,
Yeah.
what? Like that happened?
Parenting,
Like,
bro.
Are you talking about the one that was on my road, or the one near your, or is it a different one near your house? Because
The student becomes the
remember,
bastard.
so that was on Indiantown Road, but like that was like a mile or two down. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's
yeah, from your house.
yeah, but you
Yeah,
can take that road, and if I turn right at some point, I go into was it not something run? What is it?
I know because
But
I used to go that way to like
yeah,
towards
like
your house.
technically, there's like some weird back way that I could go to your house instead of going on like
Route
like
20 or
the
whatever.
main. Yeah, but I don't take it. I think it's not faster because then you go into like
I
a
went
bunch
that way
of
one
like
time, I think.
unpaved roads. Yeah, because then
It's sketchy
it's
back there.
like yeah, all of it's like old office where it's like just gravel, and then you
Yep.
just like you go around a corner at 30 miles per hour, you almost flip over like I did
Yep.
that one
I'm having
time
to
I
chip it
left your
too.
house. I
Chip
fishtailed
almost
and it
crashed.
was yeah, Zach. Have you ever heard about that?
Multiple
What?
people
This
have
one
almost
time,
crashed coming and
yeah,
going to my house.
this one time, like in high school, I was heading back home after like going over to Daniel's house, and like I was driving, and like it gets like that gravel part, and I was only
Oh
going like
God.
30, 35, and I feel so. I back in high school, I had a '94 Honda Accord, and I felt the back end like not connected to the road anymore. Like there was so much gravel and rocks that like, and so when I went around the corner, I felt the back end give out, and I started fishtailing like crazy.
Oh
And
no.
I felt like I was gonna shit out my heart. Like I basically came back around, like I fishtailed, like went. I want to say like there was like points where I one time went sideways to the right and one went sideways to the left. Like I felt like I was playing like some
Dirt rally,
Fast and the Furious like Tokyo Drift game.
Dirt rally
And
too
then
shit.
real
yeah,
life.
and then like eventually I spun directly in the middle of the road. Thank God I didn't go off like into the because like on either side is hill and trees. Like there's
Yes, the
no
big ass
like
ditches.
yeah,
Yeah.
like the big ass like
Huge
if that happened, I would have like my car would have exploded. And like I basically spun and then it stopped sideways in the middle of the road. And like I just sat there for a minute, was like like just literally just like gripping. I felt like I was gonna break the steering wheel like with like my hands because I was like, oh my God, I literally almost died. Like what just happened? And then after that, like I think ever since then, whenever I go over Daniel's place, I drive like 15 miles per hour on the ground. Like I don't
You
even go
have
above
to.
20.
It's
I
not
don't even
even
go
for the
above
gravel.
25
It's just like
anymore.
it's. I've been caught like going from Dale's house and on like a little bridge and just meeting a car there. It's like, how are two people supposed to get across here? You can't.
You don't. It's only one car. just have
And
to-
Zach,
There's
Zach,
like,
Zach, have you heard the infamous possum story that me and Billy had?
I don't think so.
So there's one time where we went over to Daniel's and I picked up Billy, and then we headed over there and we were going down the road and it was like I think it was like 8 p.m. and
All
it was
this
kind of
is
like
15 years
fall, like
ago.
winter. Yeah, so like it was at night. It was like pitch black, and I was driving and like it was at the straight point. Honestly, this might have been right around the turn where I fishtailed and almost died, but this was on the straight part going up to it. And I was like, oh wait, I think there's something on the road. I was like, hold on, let me slow down. And so I saw like this little like small thing, like, and I slowed down. I was like, is there two animals? Like, what's happening there? And I slowed down and I like go to a stop. And I was like, oh, it's a possum. I was like, what the heck is it doing? I was like, it's eating something. And then we look and there was another dead possum and it was just eating the insides of this possum that got ran over. And we were like, oh, what the fuck? And I like honked my horn and the possum thing looked up at us and it had like an intestine hanging from
Oh
its
my
mouth and just stared at us
God.
like with this. You know how possums look like ugly as fuck and just looked at me and then just scurried off into the woods and I was like, what the fuck? I just drove around the possum carcass. I was like,
Just
the fuck?
slurping up the
Good
intestines
shit.
like
Yeah.
spaghetti.
I was like, this is the most country shit I've ever seen. Like when you can witness cannibalism on a daily drive,
Like,
you know you're
casual-
like out in the middle of
casual
nowhere.
cannibalism.
Just casual animal cannibalism. Like you know you're in the woods.
Or the horses on the way to school that I forgot who it was, but there was just a story of I think it was like Billy and Ed used to ride the same bus and
Mhm.
and they were on the way to school one day and the buses in Orange of course just drive through an hour of country on the way to school and And I just remember them talking about seeing, and Barone might have been here too, but just, the bus stops and then there's just two horses fucking on the side of the road, like right next to the bus while it stopped.
Oh my god, I do remember that.
I feel like it was like everyone on the way to school that morning saw it, So like kids in the buses, kids driving, and then the whole cafeteria that morning was just talking about the horses fucking.
Okay, I do remember that. I think it was a combination of that. I think that might have been around the time when I was driving. There was a time where I was driving both Billy and Michael.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't a bus. Maybe it was just the morning drive.
But everyone talked about it when we got to school because everyone like knew what was going on. Like why? Because you're on 20. It's a 2-lane. Like
everyone drives the same road. Like there's only one way to get there.
Same road. So yeah, I do remember that. I remember everyone like looking down and you could see like there was just like a horse in the middle of the road just going to town on that pussy. It was just like we were like, why? It was just like everyone was just like, man, this county is so.
So I was going to say,
and backwards.
Were you talking about like you said like a father and son drug dealers getting into like a shootout or something?
Yeah.
So it happened, I think, before high school. I want to say it was either elementary school, middle school. So this was, this is actually like 20 years ago now. So like for context, there is a road that, like if you're on the way to my house, there's a road across the street, down a little ways. It's like, maybe 100 yards from my driveway. There's a road that, so everyone's probably passed it before, that has like 100 mailboxes at the end of it. There's, a line of probably 100 mailboxes, and it's just a road that goes back and has a bunch of houses there, and, dirt ass road, country ass road, and it's called Browning Lane, I think, and it's named after, the guy. So a little more context: if you drive about a mile further down the road, there's a kind of a farm sort of situation, like a farm little homestead, whatever you want to call it. And there used to be like a golf course there. I don't think it's there anymore. Like a really small one. And the guy that owned it was like Mr. Browning or whatever, and he used to own that whole corner of the farm and whatever. So there was like a road that was, I don't know why it was named after him. Blah blah blah. Anyways, long story short, his son lived in his own house down the road, literally half a mile from my house. And you guys pass it every time you'd come to my house because it's on Old Office. And one day, and I don't remember how we found out, whatever, I don't know how this, because we don't really talk to our neighbors that much, but we found out somehow. And one day, it just came, the news was that Mr. Browning's son, who lived in that house on the road, got killed, got shot to death, and his car was pulled up into, it was like he had been driving. Long story short, he was into drugs somehow, Mr. Browning's son. He was running away from a car that was chasing him in his own car, drove into his front yard, tried to get out of the car and run inside the house, and got shot before he got to his front door. From another car that chased him down.
Damn.
And so we were like leaving and saw an ambulance and a car in a front yard, like sideways, all askew. And I think we found out maybe later, like, that Mr. Browning's son was running from, someone that he owed a drug debt to or whatever, tried to get out of his drive up into his driveway, get out of his car, and just got fucking domed, running to his house.
Redneck Mafia got him.
Yeah, I mean, and I remember being shocked by that as a kid, and now looking back, it's like, I don't want to, we didn't live in a ghetto. It's not the same thing. It wasn't like that, but it's not that far from it either. It's not. I guess my point was trying to connect to what we were talking about earlier, where it's like a bunch of country ass white people who are poor do the same ass shit. So it is just as bad out here.
It is real bad out here.
Yeah, like
Yes,
and
or
you
it
can get real
especially
deliverance
with
real quick.
especially with like, because like when we were in high school and middle school, from what I
Mm.
remember, and not being, we weren't in those crowds, but meth was like the thing in middle school and high school out in the country. Like that was
Mm.
like the big thing was like meth, from what I remember. And then kind of after we went to college, it was or like towards the end of high school, college, and it turned into like opioids, pills and heroin and stuff that they kind of took over. But
Yeah.
meth and it was the original thing that I remember always being like meth labs and blah blah blah. That's
Yeah,
why
I
like
mean,
Breaking Bad, it was like,
I've got.
okay, yep, now it
Yep,
makes
that
sense.
makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's just more desert. New Mexico,
instead of
rural
desert, it's
Virginia,
just the
same
country,
thing.
same thing. Yep.
Science, bitch.
Yep. God. Oh man, that show's too much for me. That show, as good as
It's
it
a
is,
classic.
to me, as good as that show is, it's just too depressing. Like I never,
Oh
I
yeah.
always felt
I
like
don't know if I
shit
could rewatch it.
watching it.
Yeah, I don't think I could rewatch it.
I try to compare a lot of art to other things like movies, shows,
Mm.
music, albums. And so I just went through, this is unrelated to anything, but I just went through all of, like, I listened to all of Kendrick's albums
Mm.
this past week for whatever, I don't even know why, I just felt like it,
Mm.
And
Yeah, why not?
yeah, just, well, why? Yeah, who doesn't want to listen to Kendrick Lamar? But,
Yeah.
so I went through all of them again, and I actually think I like Mr. Morale
Mm.
more than I did a year ago. Now listening to it again,
Interesting.
it actually has grown on me, and I like it more. Of course,
Okay.
there's some parts that are really heavy, I will say.
You don't want to listen
Um,
to domestic dispute turn into lovemaking?
Side note: have you guys ever seen the music video for
For
that?
what?
No. Wait, I
Because
think I might have.
there's
I,
some
I
straight up.
feel like I blocked it out of my memory.
Well, there's some straight up like love making in it. I'll put it that way.
Hell yeah.
Anyways, well, I forgot because
Clapping
who's the
cheeks.
girl that does that bit? I forgot her
I
name.
can't remember.
Someone look it up
I can't.
because she is so hot, and she's in the music video with Kendrick because she's the one doing the part, and she's in the music video. Anyway, she's super hot. Watch the video. Um,
Watch the video.
so, but I guess the point I was trying to make is that I still am gonna say this. I know people love To Pimp a Butterfly, and I know people, and I don't know how
Watch your
people.
words there, young fella.
No, and I
Easy
think
there,
I
big
think
fella.
it's no, I think it's good. I think it's one of those things where it's like Breaking Bad, or it's like Breaking Bad, or it's like what's the
Taylor
movie with the Taylor? Yes, oh my God, just look her up if you haven't seen her before. Everyone Google Taylor Page, so hot. Anyways, what was I saying? To Pimp a Butterfly, I put it in the same category as something like Breaking Bad, or what's the movie with the heroine that we watched with Obi-Wan?
Train spotting?
Train Spotting. I put it in a
Trainspotting.
similar category to where it's like, wow, that was a great movie, because it really was. I never
Yeah.
want to see it again, and that's kind of how I feel about Mr. Morale. And I feel similar. I wouldn't say feel that strongly about To Pimp a Butterfly, but it's like hard to just listen to it. It's so serious, I guess, that it's like if you put it on, you're not like. There's a lot of very serious parts where I'm like, now I'm sad now, and
Yeah,
the
I mean,
vibe is
him screaming like it's like like like
yes.
the screaming depression part. Yeah, I mean that's yeah.
So both of those out, Mr. Morale and To Pimp a Butterfly, to me, they're like, wow, those are great pieces of art that I rarely want to look at. Whereas I put on Good Kid, Mad City, and oh my God, like that, I've listened to that thing so many times, and some of those songs. I mean, I don't know if I could listen to it anymore, and it still is good. It's still, how is it still good after
I would say
so long?
so. I have slightly different. So for me, I listened to Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. So the background behind, I listened to it again recently. The recent story behind that is that you know my sister-in-law, came by and stayed for a couple of days, and then she left her backpack with her laptop for work at our place when she went back up to Baltimore. And I was like, oh, like I'll run it up to you, because I think it was like I wasn't planning to do anything. I think I was like maybe going to read a book that day. I was like literally planning on doing nothing. So I was like, you know what, why not? I'll go up there, drop it off for you. I mean, you need it for tomorrow. Like she had like a bunch of meetings and stuff, and so I was like, you know what, I'll run it up to you real quick. There's no
Perfect
traffic right now,
to
and I was like, perfect time to just listen to some tunes, yeah. And so I listened to a bunch of albums, because I mean I'm driving from like Northern Virginia to Baltimore and back.
Yep.
Like it's gonna take like an hour and a half, even with no traffic. And so I listened to the last album that A Tribe Called Quest did, because
the
Five
one
Dog
from
died.
like 5 years ago.
Yeah, the one from 5 years ago.
God, that one's really good. That one's really good. It's super.
I listened to it again. That held up really well.
Dude, when it came out, like I listened to it right when it came out, because there's so much hype around it, and I couldn't believe how good it was. Especially like 30. No, it's very hard for an artist to stay good or relevant over like 30 plus years musically, and. God, I loved it when it came out, and I haven't listened to it since. So now I like feel like I need to listen. I listened to it a bunch that year.
It definitely holds. Yeah, I did too. Definitely holds up.
I need to do that.
Like it reminds you that like Five Dog was like a really good rapper. Like his lyrics are really good, and it reminds you that Q-Tip is also a beast as well. And their production was insane as well.
Even back then it was, but on that album it was.
And that album, I think there's one point where like it like transitions to like an Elton John sample, and it was just like,
I remember that, because Elton John's been in hip hop for a long time, like around hip hop, and he always, for whatever reason, I don't know why it is, but Elton John always brings like he adds something to, or like if either it's a sample or just him actually making a new thing. Whatever reason, I don't know why he works with hip hop so well, but he does. Yeah,
I mean, it's because like he's one of the guys that made like he makes good hip hop sampling music. Like he was making music that dabbled into what funk and soul people were making at the time. It's another one is David Bowie. David Bowie's good for hip hop samples, especially from the 70s.
Did a lot of funk.
It's like, yeah, he did a lot of funk, because it's funny, because like talking to my dad, who's just like, an old head, like a guy who, is traditionally trained in a bunch of different musical genres, likes a bunch of musical genres, and appreciates both rock and also soul, hip hop, and soul and R&B and all that stuff. And he always told me, like, growing up in his neighborhood, like in the 60s and 70s, it was like it was like guys loved David Bowie. They were like, yeah, he's weird like Prince, but that white boy can make some good music. Essentially saying stuff like that. Like, so like the hip hop community has always liked certain artists that were not like certain white like artists that did a good job of like making music that appealed to that relevant sound as well.
Like,
so.
I remember, like, side note, just, and this is, I probably haven't seen this video in forever, and I don't remember the context, but what was it, Soul Train? What was the David Bowie was on Soul Train in like the early 70s doing like his songs, and it's pretty much always black artists, because it's funk and
it's like 80% anybody who was on Motown records at the time,
which is 95% black or whatever, or like 100% black at that, obviously.
Motown basically owned the like soul and like funk like 60s and 70s, like 80% of
that area.
Yeah, if you were big, you were on Motown. Yeah.
But yeah, I remember, and I don't know if it was like, oh, he's the only white artist, or I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily true. I can't remember the context, but like it's just the fact that a skinny white British dude who's super weird. I mean, everyone knows he's super weird, but he's on Soul Train in the early 70s or whatever, and people fucking love it, and it's just because he's that guy. And I guess Elton John is that guy too. Which
Yeah,
speaking of
to a
which, I
certain
don't know
extent.
how no one knew Elton John was not gay after watching some of his music videos. It's like, like I guess it's just it's obvious to us,
What did
but
it take? I
like,
don't remember. I don't know
holy
when
shit!
he came out, but yeah, like I don't remember when he. I
I
do
want to say the
remember seeing
'90s
like.
maybe he came out like
Was it
officially.
really?
I'm pretty
Really?
sure, maybe even 2000s. I'm not. That's
That's.
just what I think in my
I
head.
would have
I
thought he
could be
came
wrong.
out sometime in the 70s. I
No,
don't.
dude,
Yeah,
I'm
I don't
pretty
know what.
sure that everyone. I don't know if everyone just didn't know back then how gay people
I
were or whatever,
mean,
but it's like, come on, man.
70s,
Come
70s and
on,
80s,
bro.
like everybody was
And
dressing
maybe
wild.
everybody was
Okay.
slightly gay. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or that was just the vibe. Like, it's like, oh, that's the style. It's, Freddie Mercury,
You
Elton John. They're two
know what
awesome
it.
bros. Like, they're
You
just
know what it.
awesome.
You know what it
Which is
reminds me
not
of?
wrong.
It reminds me of the Chappelle Show episode where like they did the Prince version instead of the Rick James version, where they talked to Charlie Murphy, and Charlie Murphy was like, "Man, this was the '80s, all right? So like in the '80s, the dude who dressed the most like a bitch got all
Yes.
the bitches."
Yes. Exactly.
So it's like you had Prince who was just like,
Literally. I mean, and that's kind of, it's weird because that's kind of, I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that's how
it's
it
the
is
shirts
now.
versus the blouses.
Game. Blouses.
Prince got that look in his eye.
He's made pancakes afterwards.
Game blouses.
How did we even, what was I was going to say something
Oh,
about
I never finished my
this.
story. So
yeah,
like,
what were you saying?
I listened to the Tribe. I listened to the Tribe Called Quest album, but then I was also like, all right. I was in that mood where I was
about
like,
Big
all right, I'm just
Steppers.
gonna listen to some critically acclaimed, like it's just like hip hop. And so I was like, fine, I'll throw back on Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers to see. And like, I listened to it again, and I liked it better than when I first heard it, but still overall, my by the end of it, I was like, this. I'm not feeling the replayability of
No.
this album, and so, but the thing is that honestly, it's outside of the time frame when it came out. I haven't listened to Pimp a Butterfly in a while, but I still feel like To Pimp a Butterfly has way more replayability than Miss Morale and the Big
It
Steppers.
does.
But
In my opinion.
mainly based off of like my personal preference for music. And my personal preference for music is if you do anything jazz, blues, funk related with heavy bass lines, then I'm gonna listen to it. Like that's
Yeah, you
what's
automatically
gonna
are
happen.
into
Like,
it.
yeah, I think it goes back to the fact that like my dad, as a musician, like he plays a lot of stuff, but what he played the most when I was a kid was him playing his bass guitar.
Hmm.
So I mean, my dad can play his bass guitar as well as electric guitar, although I think his best instrument is harmonica. So that's also
Really?
probably another reason why. Yeah, he's ridiculous at harmonica.
Harmonica is not
which
easy either. It might
is
seem
no, it's
easy. It
not.
is not easy at all.
It is not.
It is
not.
really
So
hard
my dad
to
had
get
a
good.
blues. Yeah, my dad had a blues band when he was at William and Mary in college. Like that's what he did. But like now, like doing music now, he just like does everything. So like it's like he'll play electric bass and harmonica and then sing as well. But I feel like harmonica and bass were like his two biggest things, and that's just blues music right there.
Yep.
So like anything that was blues or like funk adjacent, like has always been, I feel like I've noticed as my preference, which goes back to why I liked West Coast rap more than traditionally the New York rap. Like,
Yep.
and also Deep South, like old school Deep South rap as well. Like, for example, like UGK, 36 Mafia, Outkast, all those guys. The old school original South explosion was all based on like blues and like old school like Southern blues like style music.
It's so weird, and that you bring all this up because it's weird how, at least in it, that whatever happens when you're like a kid, something happens to your brain that that just kind of like locks certain things in. I guess.
Yeah.
And because my first there's I don't have too many early memories, but I do remember I can't remember how I was either 4 or 5, very very young, and I remember that my cousins had just gotten either their license or learner's permit. I don't remember. So this is, God, 90. If I was 4, it was 96. So, and I specifically remember they just got their license or learner's permit, and no, it must have been licensed because they brought one of my cousins, he got this little red Ford truck that's like a 2-seater cab Ford truck from the 90s, probably a Ranger or whatever. And
Hell yeah.
and so it's one. So I just remember, and that them taking me with them. I don't know how my parents let me go with with my cousins who were 16 or whatever, but we'll ignore that fact. They came for 4th of July or some kind of summer, spring. I remember it being summertime, and they came with the truck. We got in the truck, and one cousin obviously driving. And they just wanted to drive. That was like, excited to have a license. And so we were driving up to our mailbox. Used to not be at the end of our driveway. It used to be actually at the end of our street. So we'd have to drive like half a mile down the road to our mailbox because no one wanted, it was that country.
Yeah.
And so we were driving to the mailbox and back over and over and over again because everyone's listening to music, and they were just playing Nevermind by the album Nevermind by Nirvana, over and over and over again, the CD. And that was my first, I have this weird memory of being in the bed of the truck, driving like 15 miles an hour down a road, listening to that, over and over again. And as a kid, I don't remember how I felt about it at the time. But it's just like that is locked in my brain. And now whenever I listen to any music, it's just like I always am thinking, do I just like this because I have a weird thing locked in my brain for listening to Nirvana when I'm 4 years old, and now I'm just that's a weird thing that if I had listened to something else, would I like more things that are not Nirvana related, or I would say the way I really love heavy distortion. It doesn't have to be super metal, or extreme, but I was talking to you earlier about Yeezus, and Yeezus has grown on me so much over the years. That's
because of the distortion.
And it's every song has extreme distortion in the bass or whatever. And it's not always heavy in a extreme way, but it's just there's always a lot of distortion, and I feel like I got affected I got touched as a child by that for whatever reason. It's very weird.
It's funny because my main memory from listening to anything from the album or Jesus in general is from obviously the main single from it, Power, which is the fact that he dove so deep in terms of where he was sampling and doing stuff from, and mainly Power being sampled from King Crimson. And I remember listening to Power. And I remember I was in my room, or I may have been watching the music video on MTV in my house, and my dad walked by and he was like, "Is he sampling King Crimson?" And I was like,
so
what?
Your dad knew that 24th century schizoid man bit?
Because that's the thing. So my dad's a huge, anything pre-80s, my dad.
King Crimson's weird too. Or
so that's the thing. When my dad went to William and Mary, pretty much everybody in when he was there, he hung out with the Deadheads. So he hung out with guys that listened to either acid or progressive, trippy, experimental, rock. So my dad was he was deeply entrenched in understanding or knowing the 70s, not mainstream rock that was going on at the time. So I didn't even know who King Crimson was until my dad was like, "Did they just sample King Crimson?" I was like, "I don't even know who that is." and then he gave me the whole story of he was they're this experimental rock place that's from the 70s, and literally gave me the whole story behind them. I was like, "Oh, I didn't even know." But he was just sampling stuff I'd never even heard of before.
God, so. the thing is too, and that's and for Kanye to and that's the thing, Kanye does that stuff on purpose. He has a lot of really deep cuts with his sampling, and I don't want to get into too much Kanye or whatever, but like he has a lot of deep cuts with his sampling that's like relevant to the song. And you know, like, I mean, specifically like those lyrics, 21st Century Schizoid Man, it's not just because it sounds cool, it's part of what he was trying to say, you know, for that album, you know.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of his samples are super deep cuts, and not just oh, this sounds cool, they're like relevant. The sample is like, if you were like, oh, let me look up that original song, and it's like, oh, this original song is relevant, the lyrics and the theme are relevant to the Kanye song. And that's why every time I like get back, every time I like, especially with what has happened with Kanye the last 10 years or whatever, it's so like, oh man, if he could just like live in a recording studio and no one ever lets him out and just says, so, you only just make music.
He did that though. That's why he said, what's the line from, like, it's like was it like College Dropout, where he said, I made 12 beats a day for like 3 summers or something like that. Like, he literally did that when he first started working. Yeah, basically. And then also when he first started working with Jay-Z. Rockefeller Records. Yeah, and Jay-Z, like, he literally made, he made The Blueprint. He made, like, I think one of Beanie Siegel's albums, Scarface's album. Like, he made so many, like,
there's some other crazy stuff that I hadn't even heard of until recently that he did, and I was just like, oh man, that was my reaction is, oh man.
Yeah,
like
my Mount Rushmore of producers was Dr. Dre, Kanye, was it Dr. Dre, Kanye, Just Blaze, and Pharrell.
Mike Will made it. Oh,
no.
Metro Boomin.
Metro
Boomin's pretty good, but
no, those guys are good, but I think
not legendary.
It boils down to
not
Dre,
to the Mount Rushmore level.
Yeah, Dre creating the West Coast sound, Kanye with his crazy deep cut soul samples, and like all the other experimentation stuff. Pharrell, I don't know, something about Pharrell's style has always played with me. I think mainly because I love Clips so much, and the fact that I thought it was insane to hear like a rap group from Virginia. Like, I didn't think that would ever happen.
And one that's actually really good.
And one that's actually really good, and that pretty much every single album the Clips made is a hip hop classic. Like, all of them are critically acclaimed. Like,
and I mean, for me
Lord
personally,
willing,
I'm not like
till the casket drops.
I didn't grow up with Clips, so I'm not a huge Clips fan. Like, just in the fact of like I didn't grow up with them, but like, Pusha T is, if I were to make a Mount Rushmore of my favorite rappers, Pusha T is on that for me, like top 4 for me personally, you know. So like,
same for me,
especially as a solo artist or whatever. From, you know, I started listening to him. So yeah, I mean that. But with Pharrell, you know, helping at least kickstart that, and Pharrell has a very specific sound.
He produced all of it. Yeah,
he has a very. If you hear a song, you might almost. He is one where you might. That's what makes a great artist, not just producer but musician. If you hear a song for 5 seconds and you know it's someone, that's a stamp, you know.
Yeah, I've always had, even though I've been listening to Pharrell like pretty much my entire life, and I like pretty much love all his beats and all of his songs and stuff, like, I can't specifically describe to you his style. I just know when I hear a beat, I'm like, that sounds like a Pharrell beat. But I can't explain. I don't know how to explain.
In my head, I can just hear like doom, 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 doom.
Well, grinding is he has very specific, intricate drums, and sometimes he'll have very interesting, like, I don't know if I want to say synth sounds, but electric sounds.
I was gonna say, you know, and this is because of Random Access Memories. You know, Zach, you like Daft Punk, right? Like, because of
what
Random Access,
human does
say?
Yeah, I mean, because of Random Access Memories and Pharrell, like, essentially working with them on that album. I mean, he wasn't technically featured on every song, but he was like in
He
close.
did vocals
Like
for two of the songs. Yeah.
and he worked with, as far as I know, I could be wrong, but he like had some input with like production and you know what I mean. Like he was involved in the overall album making. That album sound, you can hear Pharrell existing in that inside that album's sound. You know, like the way the beat, even though it's still distinctly a Daft Punk album. You can hear Pharrell like hovering over it or what, you know what I mean? So and I can't describe it, but it's like half of a Pharrell album inside that one. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. God, dude, Random Access Memories and Discovery just.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Random Access Memories got like extra love because everyone wasn't a fan of Daft Punk when Discovery came out.
Came out, yeah.
But so like it's almost like Random Access Memories got. I don't want to say it's overrated. That's maybe an exaggeration, but it won all these awards and whatever. And
I think it won Best Album for Grammy.
Did it win Grammy?
Yeah, I think it won Best Album.
To me, the Grammys are stupid. But
I think they just like to recognize people. They won't necessarily go with the best one. They'll go with either the most popular one, or they'll try to award something to be like, this is your a send off to someone who's they're
the equivalent of a Hollywood star on the Walk of Fame or a Hall of Fame induction most of the time, where it's just it happened with that again. It happened with Daft Punk. It happened with Arcade Fire when I think it was the Suburbs. I think is what the album was called, which was good. It was a very good album at the time, and I wasn't into them then. I remember that was what made me hear about them was that album. But looking into it, it's like, oh, everyone thinks that I forgot what it was, but it was like the album before that everyone said was like the, one of the best albums of all time. And it got no recognition from the Grammys. I mean, of course it got recognition enough, but not from the Grammys. And then the next album they win best album. So it's like, oh, okay, well that was a makeup award.
I also think it's also can get pretty political, especially in recent years. I would say it gets pretty.
No, it does.
What actually, they want to convey.
It really, I mean, it does in all forms because, I mean, I was going to say another makeup album was Haim, who we've talked about, or we watched a movie with them in it recently or whatever, and we've talked about them. Their first album was was very popular in its lane, in its genre, in its for people who knew about it. But that came out in 2012 or something. And they kind of flew under. No one cared. Then blah blah blah. Years happened. Then I don't remember the details exactly, but their last album was called Women in Music, and it won. I don't know if it won a bunch of awards or if it just got nominated for every Grammy. Basically, it was it was really popular, and all of a sudden, or it was really popular at the Grammys, and it's like all of a sudden it was and that album, it was good. It was very good. I liked it a lot. But
you thought they had better albums. It was not. It's not your
their first album is their first album is a classic. Their third album is very good, and but I think it was a makeup album, or it was a makeup, and on top of sort of a ushering in of it's three women making this album called Women in Music and a lot of the lyrics are very I don't want to say feminist inspired. That's a little bit too, but it felt very much okay, here's their turn in the spotlight,
So I agree with that. And for me,
and
my example,
bad, but
no, not at all. And my perfect example of that is, so this year I watched the Grammys with my wife, and so I'll do a little. I want to talk about the Grammys because this was the first time I watched the Grammys in probably years, maybe decades, and it was interesting.
The Big Show.
All right, I want to hear about this because I have not watched the Grammys for I don't even know. I don't remember. 10 years. I don't know.
Never. So I watched the Grammys, and so my first thing, the reason why I thought about this was you were talking about it being a makeup thing. For me, because one of the main things I was obviously looking for was what was going to win best hip hop album or whatever. And I wasn't surprised at all. I expected it to be Kendrick, Mr. Morale, and the Big Steppers, even though, out of the other nominations, the obvious choice to me would have been Pusha T's album.
So let me stop you right there before you go any further.
All right.
I'm going to ask you a few questions that you may or may not know. Has Kendrick won a Grammy before? I can't remember. Has he won a Grammy award for anything?
I'm pretty sure he has, and I'm trying to remember if he's won it for songs, I believe, but I don't know if he won it again for previous things, because this, I think I know where you're going with this. Reminds us of the infamous, what's his name? God, what's his name? Thrift store dude.
Oh, wait.
Macklemore.
Yes,
Macklemore winning the Grammy over Kendrick Lamar.
Wait, did he?
He won best.
Yes,
he won best rap album over Good Kid, Mad City.
That's insane.
Like Good Kid, Mad City got snubbed, and I remember the internet losing its mind. Honestly, it probably ruined Macklemore's career, because then people it
Not
made
to
people
any of
hate
his fault.
Macklemore. Yeah, to any of his fault. He even admitted, he kind of jokes, yeah, I feel like Kendrick probably should have won it over me. You know what I mean? It wasn't like he was cocky about it. He was
thrift store. If we want to look at it just from, I'm gonna try to be as nice as possible and say thrift store and a lot of other Macklemore songs. He actually had a couple good songs on that album, from what I remember. I haven't listened to it in 10 years, but it was entertaining and good. And, not but God, Good Kid Mad... I mean, again, I already talked about it, Good Kid Mad City is maybe in the top 10 albums of all time, in my opinion.
It's one of the best... Okay, so my personal opinion, I think To Pimp a Butterfly is better than Good Kid, Mad City, but Good Kid, Mad City has the ultimate replayability. It is if I want to listen to something that I would solidify as this is Kendrick Lamar, I would listen to Good Kid, Mad City. I want to say every time I drove from ODU back home, I listened to Good Kid, Mad City in college. It was permanently put in this is my long road trip album that I will listen all the way through every single time. I've heard it thousands of times.
I remember.
But for me, I think I like To Pimp a Butterfly more. It's my favorite Kendrick Lamar album.
Both are. I mean, again, they're. The point of this little offshoot here is that somehow Macklemore somehow it didn't win a Grammy that year. Anyways. So I have another question. My other side question for this year was, and maybe because the Grammys are weird and they'll randomly not include albums one year and then a year later they'll include it, even though the album will be 2 years old by that point. Was Melt My Eyes, See Your Future one of the hip hop albums that was
it was
okay nominated. It was actually okay
it was
that's fine.
So that's the thing. I was in my opinion, I thought both of those albums were better than Kendrick's.
I agree.
Mr. Brown and the Big Steppers was the third best rap album of the year, and then 2 was Melt My Eyes to See My Future by Denzel Curry, and then number 1 for me was Pusha T's album. But so my thing is that for me, I thought that was at first I thought that, but now looking at it, I see that he did win Best Rap Album for both To Pimp a Butterfly and Damn.
He did win. They weren't nominated. They weren't just nominated. They were actually a win.
So Good Kid, Mad City, To Pimp a Butterfly, and Damn have all been nominated for Album of the Year, but none of them won Album of the Year, and only To Pimp a Butterfly and Damn won Best Rap Album.
I gotta say wrong on how I'm sorry, but all 3 of those were probably Album of the Year that they came out.
I'm 100% sure that whatever won Album of the Year that year was terrible. I have not agreed. The only time I've agreed with an Album of the Year was when I think Daft Punk won it for Random Access Memories.
Mm-hmm. That's probably,
for the most part,
I'd have to look.
I'm
that's
honestly
accurate.
I don't even know if I've ever liked an album that won Album of the Year on the Grammys. It's just not.
Most of the time, it's just and this is no shade at Beyonce, but I think she won 2 or 3 times, and each time I'm really? Beyonce?
I'm gonna talk about Beyonce
God, all right.
when talking about this Grammy. So that's the thing.
No offense
so that's
to
one of
Beyonce.
the things that No, not at all. But I just there's something interesting that which also made me think more about how obvious it is that the Grammys are political.
Hmm.
So basically, he like Kendrick wins it. So my thing, I think it's more of a like,
Mm.
it's almost like you expect Kendrick to win it because he is the like face of the new generation of hip hop. Like he is the like standard bearer.
Yep.
I think it's a combination of that.
He's carrying the torch right now, or he has been.
Yeah. I think it's a more of an industry of do we really want to give album of a year to just a coke rap album? So I
Yeah,
don't know if
no,
Pusha T ever will win a Grammy,
Kendrick is
even though
acceptable because white people
he
listen to
talks about a
him, and
multitude
he
of
talks about
topics,
all kinds of things. And yeah, he
and,
talks about
and
things that are
not
acceptable.
and not to
No,
sound like
yeah, it's crazy.
not to sound like a redneck Republican, but I do also think that it helped that he had the song about accepting his trans like aunt or cousin or
Hmm.
whatever.
Which is a great
I
song.
think it's a great song. Yeah, exactly, great song. Nothing wrong with that, but I do think it plays a part in, and it made me
In
think
the
back to
decision
when,
making.
yeah, and it makes me think back to when Macklemore beat
He
Kendrick with
had
Good
the
Kid,
song
Mad City
about like
because he had the song
his
about his uncles being gay.
gay.
I think,
Yep.
yeah. So I was like, I feel like you get an extra edge going into the
Yep.
Grammys if you have some type of social
And
rights
really,
or
see, and
particular
this is what's so
issue.
bad about that type of decision making is
Hmm.
that Macklemore, let's start with Macklemore and say he made that song not because he was thinking, oh man, I'll get extra points to win a Grammy Award. He made
No,
it
yeah,
because he
100%.
actually
Neither of
wanted to
them
make that song. And the same thing with they both
for Kendrick.
felt that and that's like a beautiful thing. And then that gets used in a kind of bad
Yeah.
way. I
And
don't know. It makes me
I
feel
think
bad.
in a more impactful way, I think the Kendrick one is way more impactful because you have a guy who is considered the face of modern day rap and hip hop, and he basically made a like pro trans rights song
Yep.
in an environment of I'm going to be honest with you, listen to hip hop for many years. It's, the LGBTQ rights is not like the
A
forefront of
priority.
being talked about as a in that musical space. So
Mm.
it was I think it was very important, very huge as well. But yeah, so like that was the thing. So I was like, all right, but like I'm not regardless, even though I for me like Mess Around with Big Steppers doesn't have big replayability for me. I respect it as an album. I think it's a
Hmm.
good album, but it was only my third favorite album of the year. But I'm like, all right, if anyone's gonna get a Grammy and it's gonna be Kendrick, I'm not gonna complain about it.
Yep.
So moving on. What was the other thing? The thing. Okay, let's talk about Beyonce. So another thing where it made me feel realize it's political is like, so there's a lot of people nominated for a lot of different things, and I think it was depending on how many Beyonce won in this Grammys, she was going to officially become the artist with the most Grammy awards, like
Just
of all time,
overall.
overall all time. Like, and she now has more Grammys than any other artist in like history. But
Oh,
but
interesting.
the Grammy she won to officially become the GOAT in terms of Grammy Awards won. She won Best EDM
Yes,
album.
I was looking at it and saw. I was like, what
Oh
the fuck?
well, and to
So
be fair, I'm going
so
to say this: I have not listened to what was it called? Whatever it was, I forgot what it's called. It's her
I
like
Renaissance.
can't
on the
remember the name of
horse,
it.
sitting on the. Is
But
it
okay,
Renaissance? Her sitting on
yeah,
the
it's called
horse. I have
Renaissance.
not listened
So
to it at all, so I'm not going to judge it and say that's not right. But that is surprising. Let's just say
I
that's
will say
surprising.
it's not right because I feel like it should go to a traditional EDM artist or traditional EDM album.
Yeah, you would
Is
think so.
it EDM? Technically, by default, yes. The entire premise, basically, of Renaissance album is that the entire production sound of it is a basically homage to the early '90s, like Vogue,
Hmm.
kind of
Scene.
LGBTQ drag queen scene, like movement,
Hmm.
like literally like Birth of RuPaul, like kind of
Yep.
like it has those like early '90s like electric dance kind
It's like
of beats,
breakbeat.
like
I know
yeah,
exactly what it
which
sounds like when I
it's
hear it.
look, it sounds honestly, I'm not gonna lie, it sounds really
I'm
good.
skipping
Like
through it right
I
now. It does
would
sound pretty
I
good.
would I would bump it I would bump it. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
I would jam to that. So it's, but I don't consider that a true EDM album. I feel it's ridiculous. But I also see why they did it because they wanted to distribute. It makes you think like, okay, now I'm seeing how the Grammy distributes their awards and how they want to give out their awards. So they did that because I can't remember which specific one she won, but I think it was for best song. The
Hmm.
best song, they went with Lizzo, and then I think there was some other album categories that they went with where they went with other people where all of them were all nominated. It was like five of these albums, like it was um like Lizzo, Beyonce, and like two or three other people were all nominated in like the same categories. And I feel like they were like, okay, we need to spread them out. We need to make sure this person gets this person because we
Uh,
think this person deserves it, but not maybe in that necessary category. They just decided to
Interesting.
evenly distribute the awards. In my opinion, that's what it came off as watching it.
Once you see all
Like,
the
yeah,
the nominations and then the awards, it's
yeah.
like okay, it's all the
So
same. It's a group of people, and then they all get distributed
yeah.
evenly or however fairly. How that
So
interesting.
if I don't remember it correctly, I'd have to look specifically, but if I remember correctly, it felt like it was like I think best pop album went to like Lizzo or something like that, and
No,
then
best pop was
or
Harry
best
Styles, wasn't it?
pop song. No, okay, I was gonna get to that near the end, but no, Harry Styles won album of the year.
Yes. There's
Oh,
also some other ones I'm looking
Yeah,
at, I think.
okay.
so oh man, what is it? Let me just go to Wikipedia. What
It's
is the
weird because it's so weird, and I don't
57th
know how
theme?
good and you know, again, I can't speak to the quality of the music or what I would feel about Harry Styles' latest album, but like it's weird. Harry Styles has been, um, let's say, getting hotter and hotter in terms of like.
Mm,
I'll see him on Reddit. I'll see him on the internet's results on my Google feed more and more the past year. Like specifically the past year, I've seen him randomly pop up more than he ever has on his
yeah,
own, and it's and then oh of course he wins album of the year because like he was the hot thing this year. I don't, that's just how it feels, I guess, to me, is that's like whether his album
yeah,
was good or not, it's like he's been popular this past year or two, and he's like known as being, and he's known as being as like a really cool good guy. He does a lot of good stuff for his fans and whatnot. So I'm not shitting on Harry Styles. I don't listen to him,
yeah.
but like it
Okay,
seems like of course he'd win album of the year this year. Who else would they pick or whatever?
right. So to make sure I'm being accurate, so the thing was okay. So record of the year, Lizzo won record of the year for About Damn Time, which not surprised. The thing
Mm-hmm.
was like played a billion times on TikTok, like to death. Like obviously, okay. Album of the year, yeah, was Harry Styles. Let's see, song of the year. That was an interesting one. They gave it to, and I didn't even know she made a song. She gave it to they gave it to Bonnie Raitt.
Bonnie Raitt, like the country, or like the, isn't she a
Yes,
country singer?
yes, yeah, yeah.
What? That, wow. I mean, like, and
I
not like
think it
a
was
modern country singer, like a country
like
singer from
old
30
school,
years
yeah.
ago, 40
Like
years ago.
Jazz asked who it was, and I was like, think like I told her I was like, listen, I'm not really heavy on like country. I just remember as a kid that there was two. I remember specifically that there was two redhead country singers. One was Bonnie Raitt, and the other one was Reba McEntire.
Yeah, Reba
And you know her
McEntire.
from her sitcom show. So the
Yep.
one that wasn't in a sitcom.
Yeah.
That's because I think
And like
Jazz
both of
actually
them
like
were even
loved
old
that
then,
sitcom
so
show.
like I'm pretty sure they
Hmm.
were like 80s country or Bonnie. And again, I don't even, I'm not even
Yeah.
aware. So wow, she won.
Then
See, okay, and no offense to Bonnie, maybe she's never. That's one of those things where it's like,
mhm.
did everyone really think that Bonnie Raitt's song, whatever it is, was the song of the year? Yeah, like,
Also,
it's so
another
weird.
thing that makes me think about that is like it's also a if she got nominated because it was a good enough song that got nominated. Do you think because she's up there in age? Do you think and she's not making as much music? It's like is this the last chance to give her
Yep,
a Grammy
that's what I was
before
thinking.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I mean, the other
Weird.
stuff that was on there was it's mostly TikTok songs. It's like A B C
That's
D E F
interesting.
U, About Damn Time by Lizzo. That's okay. I remember now because Jazz was in shambles because it was Song of the Year, and you know what got nominated for Song of the Year? You know what was
Something
also on
from
that
Taylor
list?
Swift.
All Too Well, the 10-minute version.
Okay.
was nominated for Song of the Year.
So
and
it
every
had the
Swiftie
chance.
was convinced that she was going to win Song of the Year. And then it went to Bonnie Raitt, and she was like, who?
Oh my
It's like,
god.
so yeah, that's a nut. I honestly was surprised by that. I thought they were going to give it to Taylor, but
Yeah, especially with the reception
yeah, I
this
mean,
last album got. So
yeah, Break My Soul from Beyonce from the Renaissance album, Adele's Easy on Me. Oh yeah, God Did got nominated as well. So,
wait, what did?
God did.
God Did, the
Oh.
DJ Khaled song.
Yep. Great.
So, and
Awesome.
then also The Heart Part
Great.
5 by Kendrick. So,
Wait, so
I
it was
mean,
the heart?
those-
It wasn't
those
even
last-
interesting.
so
See,
those
that's the thing.
last
It's like
three
the heart,
songs-
and that's the thing. It's like I'm not gonna sit down and listen to the Heart Part 5. I listened to it one time. The video is like almost more important than the song. I mean, it's good.
Honestly,
like it's
honestly, on replay, that was one of the more replayables.
really.
I will
I
tell
mean,
you,
it's good.
in
but it's
my
like,
opinion,
I just normally like the Heart songs aren't even part of the album, so that's a little weird. I don't know. To me, that's like a weird choice.
But that specific one though, was like the beat. It gave me like I don't know, like Marvin Gaye, Curtis Mayfield type of vibes. You know, like.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I just liked the beat, and then also it was like good lyric, like very good lyrically, obviously.
Classically.
But yeah, so like so yeah, they gave it to that. All those people that I talked about were nominated. So then they had Best Pop Solo Performance. They gave that to Adele for Easy on Me.
Okay.
And
so here's
so
the
like there was like
distribution of
so that was like
Grammys
but that's the thing.
coming.
It was like there was like 6, and like of those 6, all those people got nominated. So like there had to be. I felt like they were like they've got to put one for Lizzo, because Lizzo's nominated for. You can't have Lizzo nominated for like 20 categories and she not win one.
Yep.
So then it's kind of like you do that. And then okay, so I didn't realize Harry Styles. Yeah, you're right. Zach, he did win Best Pop Vocal Album, but he also won Album of the Year. That's what I was thinking of. And then yeah, so then best Dance Electronic Recording, Break My Soul won as well, and then it won Best Dance Electronic Album as well, so it won Best EDM Song and EDM Album, which I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't even know the other songs. Oh my god.
What are the other options?
For Best Recording, there was a Kate Renata song on here.
See, I swear to God, I was going to say
God.
when you said Beyonce won Best EDM, what did you say, album of the year?
Mhm.
I was literally about to say, I wonder if Kate Renata or Flying Lotus has ever won any Grammy Award ever. And I was thinking with that question in mind that no, they probably haven't. and it's just, to me, it's like, you're gonna give that to Beyonce if you're gonna give a makeup award, give it to Kate Renata or Flying Lotus or something. If they have never won one, like, they deserve it.
Yeah,
It's just
I think, but I think the reason my thing is like they decided to do that because it was so different from what she normally did. They didn't put her in any of the pop categories. They didn't put her in any of the pop categories, and they already decided they were going to give Harry Styles pop album and something else. So that axed out Lizzo and Beyonce from getting any of those. So it's just really interesting. Also,
this is why I don't know.
I did not know Coldplay came out with an album
Me neither.
last year. Apparently they were nominated.
Apparently they did.
They were nominated.
See, it's like, did anyone listen to it at all?
Did anyone listen? Yeah, I mean, Chris Martin was there. I remember he presented an award, and he came out looking like the most stereotypical 2008 hipster. I was like, bro, you have not changed your clothes in 15 years. What is happening? Like, he came out with the knit cap, like the jacket, like the like button down, like flannel jacket and the skinny jeans. I was like, you look like you work at Hot Topic in '08. What is happening? Like, what are you doing, Chris? Please upgrade.
You have people that can dress you.
What is happening?
You can afford to hire people to dress you.
Yeah, so that was interesting.
Yeah, that's. I mean,
a lot of these other ones I didn't see, but yeah, and so okay, then we'll go to like the people who performed. They did. It was interesting. They did. I guess it was like the no, it was like the 40th or 50th anniversary of hip hop. So they had a bunch of people come out perform. They had like LL Cool J, they had Nelly. Hold on, let me go back to the 50 years of hip hop. They had The Roots,
So that's starting
Grandmaster
with like
Flash.
like Sugar Hill Gang. When are they counting as like the start date? I
I
guess.
don't know.
I
I
wonder what
guess
the
it would be. I
73.
don't know. What there's so many dates you could start with, but basically how they did the performance was it started off with The Roots,
Hmm.
and then it instantly went to Grandmaster Flash and Melly Mel, like super old school. Then it went to Run DMC and LL Cool J, and they also had DJ Jazzy J,
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
and yeah, so like super 80s. Then they did Salt and Pepper. Then they had Rakim come out, and then they had Public Enemy with Chuck D and your boy Flavor Flav.
Yeah,
Um,
of course they did.
yeah, they had
Yeah.
Scarface come out and do Mind Playing Tricks on Me, which I thought was cool.
Okay.
Which I'm glad I'm seeing him walking around and performing because I don't know if you heard, but like 2 years ago when the pandemic happened, like Scarface almost died from COVID. Like
Oh,
I thought I remember them saying he was having kidney failure and like he was on
I
dialysis or
don't remember that
something.
at all, but
I
wow.
remember seeing a random article about it, and they were like, he's like, people thought he was gonna actually die from COVID, but I guess he didn't. He's doing better now, enough to like at least perform at the Grammys.
Or did he?
So, right, they had Big Boy there. Then they went to Busta Rhymes, and then Missy Elliott, and then Nelly. They even had Too Short there do Below the Whistle. They had the Locks do We Gonna Make It, which I was very surprised
Oh,
by.
so they had a lot of like.
And then
That's a
then
lot of people,
randomly at the
honestly, to get
end
together at
at
one
the
time.
end and then at the end for like the new school they did Lil Baby, Glorilla, and then they had Lil Uzi Vert come out and do the Just Wanna Rock. So
Oh my god.
he's getting sturdy with it.
Yep.
So
That's
but
interesting.
yeah, it was really interesting. And so then they did the Harry Styles wins best album, and then they ended the show with an 8-minute performance of God Did with everybody in God Did with DJ Khaled, Jay Z,
Okay,
Lil Wayne,
now.
Rick Ross, and John Legend. And they did it outside of the Grammys at night in the middle of like Los Angeles, and like they cleared off like 6 blocks, so it was just like an empty street.
Uh, why did it have to be
Why
DJ
have you
Khaled?
DJ Khaled?
Okay,
Anyone would
okay.
be
Here's the
DJ
thing.
Khaled,
Here's
man.
the thing. Okay, it's so funny because again, it goes to like my utter shock of the music industry and the people who work specifically in the music industry and why they love DJ Khaled so much. I don't understand why does like everyone loves him and it's just like yeah like and this like acts and just lets him act like he's an actual artist when he has no talent whatsoever. He's just a project
There is
manager. You know what I
one
mean?
other
Like it's
guy I thought about that because he would like always he sung average. All the stuff he had with average. But he always like rake in like one big artist for his popular songs just to cover for it, like sing the chorus and he'd hit it. I forget what his name is. Like every time, like his
Flo Rida?
no, it was like some electronic pop artist. I forget.
Hmm. I
If I
mean,
heard it, I would tell you what it is. But it has yeah,
that's where so it's gotta be some like I don't know how to say it, but like middlemen, even though like 95% of the time middlemen are like trash, and even DJ Khaled is probably trash. Let's just say that out loud.
yeah.
Like middlemen, most people hate them, but there are every once in a while, like they are the grease that goes in the gears. They are just the guy that knows everybody, and maybe they provide some kind of service. Like they're like they I don't know how to put it, but like
Gym Class Heroes.
they. Oh yeah! Oh my god!
Gym Class Heroes.
Yeah, gym class heroes.
Like every time
God,
I hear them,
forgot
like they
existed.
like they're so
How did
mid,
they?
but they just have like here's like Stereo Hearts.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
It's
they
Adam
were. I
Levine
mean,
is the entire song. Like whatever they have in the middle doesn't fucking matter because it doesn't sound good. It's just like Adam Levine comes in and does the chorus,
mm-hmm.
and that's all that matters.
I don't remember. They were around for at least like they made at least 2 or 3 albums that were marginally popular. And do you remember? I forgot what was the dude. David would remember his name. I forgot the guy that was like the quote unquote rapper in Gym Class Heroes. I forgot his name. David will come back and remember it. But he was one that dated Katy Perry for like a few years.
Oh god.
And it's like who are these dudes? This random collection of dudes in this band, and they're like super popular. I mean, that happens all. Yeah, I mean that's like that happens.
The
I mean, DJ
disparity
Khaled's
in
an
this
example.
album with like their big album is crazy. Like Sarah Hearts is almost 1 billion listens, and then there's just some songs which just have just over 1 million.
500,000.
The intro is 700,000, but the lowest I think is just over 1 million. And it's like, well,
Yeah, I think at least my.
All right, I'm back. What about DJ Khaled?
No, I'm gonna ask you this question and see if you remember off the
Okay.
top of your head without looking it up. The
Okay.
Gym Class Heroes.
Mhm.
Who is the guy, the rapper from Gym Class Heroes, quote unquote rapper that dated Katy Perry? What is his name? Because I forgot.
Oh, he dated Katy Perry?
Yes, I'm pretty sure that like a lot of her songs are about him, and a lot of their songs are about her, and vice versa. You know what I mean?
I can't remember his name, but I remember the very interesting fun fact trivia about him.
Oh god.
He is he's Tyga's cousin.
See, so this is so that's very interesting because me and Zach were just saying like how did Gym Class Heroes get super popular, get all these like artists around them, and I mean, of course, you could say their songs are good or bad, whatever. That's
What was that guy's name?
Zach, look it up. Jamie, pull it up. What's Gym Class Heroes? What's the
Jamie, pull this shit up.
the guy that does like the rapping? I mean, they're a weird band, but the same thing with DJ Khaled. It's like how it's got to be
Travie
connections.
McCoy.
It's just Travie McCoy.
That's what it was.
Travie
Travie McCoy.
Yep, Travie
Yeah.
McCoy. Yeah, a lot of Katy Perry songs and a lot of Travie McCoy. A lot of Gym Class Hero songs are like about Katy Perry, and a lot of Katy Perry songs are about Travie McCoy. So, for any lore, if you go back and listen to those songs and imagine them.
She's got an interesting dating history because she also dated a British dude. What's his name?
Richard Brand.
Yeah, Richard Brand.
He's an interesting guy.
Richard
I don't know
Brand
much about
is
him, but-
interesting. Well, Richard Brand's very interesting because like he came out as being like like a pretty much hardcore leftist, but then also he started doing some weird like anti-vax and then tanky shit. He basically became Glenn Greenwald essentially, and like kind of
Yeah.
like did like a grift to the right with some weird anti-vax stuff. Yeah, it's really weird.
That's what I thought. The last I heard was that he was like just not. What are those people that fall into that category where they don't have solid political beliefs? They're like this
Yeah.
weird. I don't even know, because Joe Rogan's kind of in that category too, in like a
Yeah.
less extreme way, where it's just
Like Joe
Rogan
seemed
just
pretty
idiot.
chill. Yeah, he was
it's
like,
just called being
he was
dumb,
like,
I guess.
yeah, he seemed like kind of like socially acceptable and had pretty like normal takes. Like, oh yeah, like
he
but
was
then, like, I
everyone's
don't know,
favorite
man.
himbo until the Spotify deal. Then he was everyone's favorite rich himbo. You know what? We all know what happens to everybody's favorite himbo when they become rich. They turn right.
Except everyone's new favorite
Yeah.
himbo, Hassan.
But my thing was is that like Joe like used to actually have like diverse set of people coming on of different backgrounds coming on, but
Nope,
like
not anymore.
post Spotify like COVID,
As soon as he
was
moved-
just
well, he-
bringing
he-
on
he-
only
'cause-
right wing people.
He moved from. I guess like the obvious answer could be
He moved from where he was to
he moved from L.A. to
Austin.
Texas.
Yep.
Yeah, Austin, and then joined Spotify, and all of a sudden he just became Alex Jones light, sort of, and
Pretty much, it was pretty bad.
and that's where it's just like, what happened? I don't
He
know
had
if
the
it's on purpose,
kookiest
but-
people on. Like he just started having these most unhinged medical quote unquote professionals on there.
And that's where
Like,
and I used to listen to him a lot, like in 2013. So this is a long time ago. Like before he was kind of
Yeah, I've heard
really
him like
popular.
a little bit before Spotify, and I really liked it. And he goes to Spotify, I was like, okay.
Yeah, because he would. I mean, he would just have like sports science doctors on, and
Yeah,
like in just what you would say, what you would normally say are like legitimate professionals in their fields, and he's a dumbass. But he,
yeah,
you kind of learn through him being a dumbass when they like are talking
yeah.
about whatever their
You
field
like Joe
is.
Rogan when he brought on like people like Neil
Smart
deGrasse
people to
Tyson
Yes,
or
explain
like
it to
exactly.
just dumb stuff, but
yeah,
now he brings on people who peddle dumb stuff to dumb people, and he's just like, yeah, me dumb ape, me like, and it's like, okay, Joe, thanks.
Yeah,
it,
it's
it's
yeah,
just so bad.
not
He
much to
just got
say.
so bad with misinformation and like it was just so bad.
I
Oh,
mean,
remember?
and
Have you seen the thing where he thought like
Oh, the
thought
YouTube
he thought
fight?
the boxing match from the YouTuber clash. He
Yes.
thought it was actually like a guy and his son like having a boxing match and fighting each other.
and that's where it's like you can just say like, okay, everything that
Two
he's thought and said is just you can throw out
hundred
the
and
window because he's just an
eighty
idiot.
The
So
worst part,
dollars.
the
What
worst
is
part
this
is that
shit?
he refuses to admit when he's wrong, and he just doubles down. He double
yep,
downs on it. Like, and they're like, "What do you do? Dude, just admit you don't know what the fuck you like." You used to be the guy that would say, "I'm a dumb himbo. I don't know what I'm talking about," and then all of a sudden, he like all of a sudden became an expert on like like COVID, and was like, "No, I'm right.
But say,
Like
all of a
the
sudden he
scientists are
starts thinking his
wrong."
opinion matters. He's like, okay, Joe, back it
The
up.
Big Shell. The Big Shell. The Big Shell. The Big Shell. The Big Shell.